Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can tell, we taking apart the quad cab. So before I finish taking it apart, we'll kick it back over to a time lapse. But I talked to Jarrett at Forced Inductions. They went ahead and got you guys a discount code. Now I don't want to screw this up, so let me double check it. Okay, so your discount code is going to be UCC, the pound sign or the hashtag sign 1. Again, that's UCC hashtag or pound sign the number 1. That's going to save you 10% on Forced Inductions products, and we will take this apart and we'll talk about it. As you guys know by now, I really don't run or certainly don't plug companies that I don't believe in testing and ensure that they are going to be a good quality for you guys, the end user. We have used Forced Inductions now for quite some time on their big GT 55, G57, G55 size turbochargers. We've also had their journal bearing S400s for a long time, all the way back to my triple turbo setup. And then they just came out with their new ball bearing S450. This was my first go around test with it, and I gotta say, I was not disappointed. So let's finish taking this apart and then we'll talk about it. Okay, about an hour later, this is where we're at. It comes apart pretty easy. I'll be honest, I'm not working like super duper hard either. So if I look a little lethargic or walking back and forth too many times, like I probably am, I gave myself about a week. It is Tuesday. We got home Wednesday, so 6 days off. Luckily, Kyla gave me some time to work on it. Spend some time with the family, got your guys' YouTube video edited. I did go ahead and get the shirts on order. I will let you know when they're here. I am too hesitant to do a pre-order. I hate taking people's money and not being able to ship a product. So I did my best guess on guessing. Hopefully it's good. All the other shirts, the new shirts that just came out for UCC, those will be available in whatever sizes I have left. And then all my old stuff, to try to get rid of it, I'm going to post it for sale as well. It'll be discounted just like it was at the event. But anyway, back to this. Talking about Forced Inductions. So this is their GTR 70. As you can see here, we got a little dirt in the pipe. Now, I do run an air filter. It is a Vibrant air filter. We also did run the wheel wells as well. But in a track like that, it's bound to happen. Now, luckily, it looked worse here, got better over here. So hopefully the cylinders look okay. We'll know here in not very long. But we got everything pulled apart. The GTR 70 looks fantastic. Again, this turbo has really, in my opinion, stepped up forced induction's size game. They did, I think, a 114 in a G57 style. This one, they kind of stepped it up. It reminds me more of like a HX82 based turbocharger. Did absolutely fantastic. This is their ball bearing S450. So as you can see here, both of these turbos feature billet center sections. This is a 102 millimeter turbine wheel. So we run an 85 millimeter compressor, 102 turbine on a 115, where'd it go? 115 divided T6. Now, we don't have a ton of runtime on here, but what I am noticing is no cracks in the divider. Usually that does happen, but luckily for us, it did not. Moving on, the GTR 70, we run that in a I think it's a 125 open T6. So if you want the turbochargers that I have, there you go. Don't care, knock yourself out. And these things really did take an absolute beating. These are, as you could tell by the cover and everything, like these are the original turbos that we had. And they did fantastic. Now, for those of you data-minded individuals, the dyno smack was 142 pounds boost. The drive pressure was right around 130 psi. So one thing that we did switch, and I covered it, is we switched over to the 50 millimeter force inductions gates. Now, the only downside to these gates is they do not fit on a 45 millimeter wastegate outlet. So like your steed speed, stuff like that, they don't fit it. So if you want to run these wastegates, all you do is buy an ungated steed. You buy some 2-inch stainless, and then you go ahead, mill out your hole, weld it on, and then weld the flange. But these gates here controlled drive pressure all weekend. They did great. They didn't flutter. I have no issues with them. As you can see by the gold color, they were certainly putting in work, especially on that sled pole. There is part of our data logging for our drive pressure. We run a soot trap. Now, granted, this truck's not very sooty. It runs very clean, so I'm curious to see how dirty that even got over a weekend. But we do monitor drive pressure as well as boost pressure and intake air temperature, which we'll go into that probably in a different video. But this is the setup that we did. We got the passenger side of the engine pretty much disconnected. On the driver's side, it's very simple. Now, because I know this head has to get shipped, I'm going to take the rail and the fuel lines and all that stuff off right now while it's on the truck. I'll probably pop the injectors out while it's in the truck. Normally, if I'm just doing a head gasket on this truck specifically, I'll just pull the head off and then set it back down with all that stuff in. But since this head does have to get worked on, we will do that. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these wastegates off, but these things, absolutely phenomenal. And if Force Inductions is willing to let you guys save money on stuff I use, believe in, go ahead and use it. I have had great luck with them. And again, this is a relationship, it started back. I think I bought my triple kit in 2019. We started using them, or in 2018 is the first time I bought a Force Inductions turbo. And I've never really wavered on that. So we haven't done anything, but I keep getting this idea about running a single turbo for drag racing. And I'm looking, so 72 pounds. Hot pipe. We'll call hot pipe hood stack a wash, just for now. 15 pounds, 5 pounds. So like going to a single, we could lose about 100 pounds. Interesting idea. We may have to look into that. Little single GT55 action. I'm also really torn on running the coolant anymore. As you can see though, no head gasket problems. Check that out. A little rust in there, but I mean, I never clean that radiator out, so that's more on me than anything. But I am curious. It makes a man wonder if we were, well, the radiator, I can't remember. I think we weighed it. I want to say it's like 70 pounds with the fan. And then that's with the hoses and everything. And this is like 6 pounds. And then about 5 gallons of coolant, 40 pounds. So you're talking about at least 120 pounds of weight loss. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? I don't know. I also know that this belt was flipped. It flipped during the sled pull. We ran it like this during the sled pull, though, because we couldn't find a belt. And honestly, it's turning an alternator or power steering pump. It's not like super vital. But I do think we gotta do something different with the belt. And I don't know what different is going to look like. But I do think that there is something that needs to change with the belt. The only thing I can really think of is maybe going to a regular water pump, like a belt-driven water pump, and putting this belt over here. The other thing that I thought of is if we go dry block, we put a plate here, and then we can clock this tensioner higher, put more tension on the belt, and then you don't have to worry about that crashing. So a couple ideas in my head. I also think we need to get like the proper pulley to keep this belt on. It never flew off, but that is something to think about. At a minimum, though, we'll put a fresh belt on it, and I will carry a spare in the truck. This problem happened on the dyno. Drag racing, it was fine. The dyno was the first time it had an issue. And then sled pulling, it actually flipped the belt like so. Because the belt wasn't full length, it didn't do any damage. But that is certainly an issue that we need to tackle. I also am going to drain the oil, cut the filter open. We ran the same oil we broke it in on the cheap oil. We put Hot Shots 2050 in it, and we did not change the oil since. So the UCC or the dyno practice up at Power Driven and then the whole UCC event, honestly, this oil is probably still fine. But given all the dust and everything this thing ingested, I think it's just time to put fresh oil in it and a fresh filter. But either way, just kind of, as I take this apart, slowly thinking, we definitely need to pull this transmission out. I think it'll dyno fine, but I'm not sure. So while I film this, I'm thinking the street diesel throwdown is June 21st. Thanks to you guys watching the channel, we were able to sponsor that. TC is the one that puts it on. Given what I heard from Tyler and Brighton, I don't think this cylinder head's going to be back in time, and I really don't want to put like a stock shelf head on it. So I think we're going to miss that event. It's unfortunate, but I would potentially like to race in Montana for NHRDA. That's in August. And then I do want to hit some dynos. There's also a dyno event at the end of June up. I'll put it down here because I can't remember the name, but Beeman Builds on TikTok is the one that put me onto it. He's building a 3rd gen truck, S400 compounds, built the whole thing in his shop by himself. If you guys like my kind of content, you'll probably also like his. Again, I found him on TikTok, and super awesome guy. His wife does a lot of the filming for him. And again, it's cool to see people start finding this industry and taking it to the next level. I think he's shooting for like 1,1500 horsepower, and we're doing our best to help him. I'm going to try to be up at that dyno event. I can guarantee you it will not be with this truck. We might take the L5P up there, but there is that event. And again, I'll link that, or I'll put it down below, and I'll put his YouTube and TikTok on there as well. Super awesome guy. Anyway, his name's Wes. That is kind of what we're looking at. So there's some dyno events in September that I definitely think are doable. There's the drag racing in August that I think is doable. And I even asked Tyler, I said, hey, could I just buy another head? And they're so backed up, which is great to hear. Like, I'm glad they're selling product. It's unfortunate for us, but, he said fixing this one will be the fastest way to get you back on the road. So we'll do that. Unless Will over at PDD starts cutting shelves off on his heads, I would be down to try a power driven head. No disrespect to industrial at all, just if PDD started making a head and they wanted me to try, I would 100% be on board for that. So, Will, if you're watching this, chop chop, need cylinder head. And I just want to keep the cylinder head manufacturing kind of like close to home. So like Industrial Injection, they do all their stuff in Richfield. It's about a 7-hour drive from here. So if I did have to like run up there, run back, it's doable. Power driven, 6 hours there, or 6 hours, and it just makes it real convenient. And also both of those companies are very, very good on the cylinder head flow with the smaller size valves that I really like. So I just like a durable head. And like I've said before, they've never seen this. I've seen people do it. I've just never done it on a race head before. So be curious to see once we get this apart how bad the pistons look. But I'm going to just pitter patter. I'll pick the camera up probably once we start popping the valve cover off, guys. We got the wastegates off. And here you guys can see what Meyer and I did. I say Meyer and I. Meyer did. We just took the push rod out of the intake. We let the exhaust still be on, so as the motor was running, it could at least get the exhaust out. Obviously not something that we would have ran like that. It was mainly just because we wanted to load it into the trailer. And I don't know if I ever showed you guys a video of that, so I'll show you guys. But it did load itself in the trailer. And once I get this all off, you guys could see how close we are to that retainer almost blowing up in my face. So we turned the injector off just by disconnecting it and ran it. So I'm going to keep working on getting this pulled apart. I just wanted to kind of show you guys as it was coming apart, what we were doing, why we were doing it. Yeah, honestly, pulling the head on this isn't that big of a deal. I just, now that everything's apart, we'll probably clean it again a little bit more. I got to get, obviously, the motor and stuff sealed up, and we'll wipe down some of this. My deck plate's getting rusty, so we might kind of Scotch-Brite that up. For any of you guys that know, you know. I'm not ever wanting this thing to be like a show truck, like Garrett Nissa's truck. Like, good Lord, that's incredible. But I just want to go racing and make big power and have like a presentable vehicle. So, yep, we'll keep chipping away. All right, we are here, and now you guys can see. So this one is really sunk. This is kind of what they normally should look like, this one. It's kind of happening all throughout. This one was definitely the worst, where it looks like one tap of a hammer would break that free. I also noticed that this exhaust valve is hung open. So I'm sure that piston probably doesn't look the best. This might turn into a going into the bottom end kind of deal here, but let's see if we can pop it up here. Yep, there we go. So given that took very little force, I would say we'll have some spots on the piston right there, but I doubt it did any catastrophic damage. But that is the problem, right? When the locks start pulling through the retainers, it's not a good day. Let me pull this off here. Pull this off like so. Got a bunch of stuff we're gonna have to wash, but that's okay. All right, now you can really see the problem. My Lord, that thing's about ready to blow. And if you look down the tops, you'll see almost all of these are okay. It's all of like really the outboard side. Actually, just kidding. That one's pretty hammered as well. So, yeah. But that was the only valve that was stuck down, was this #1 exhaust valve. If you guys are unfamiliar, intake, exhaust. So I'll go ahead and pull the push rods out. I'll get this rail removed. And we're going to slowly start bagging stuff to keep it clean while we wait for the solution to our problem. But there it is, guys. That is the only damage. Just that little couple nicks where the exhaust goes. Cross hatching still there. Definitely did some damage to the cross hatch, but it didn't have a lot of blow by, so it's fine. Given that this is an engine that kind of just has an expiration date, so to speak, when you start smacking them like that, I think we'll probably just leave it. I might try to ball hone just the very top with the piston in it. Sounds ghetto. May try it. Not sure. Look at that Hot Shot secret. Wow. I had to make a few phone calls, but I did acetone the deck plate off. And you guys can see this damage now to this piston. The two little nicks. So I would say UCC 2025 Carnage Award is not ours. We bent a valve. We lightly nicked a piston. Everything else looks great. The cross hatching could be better. I've seen a lot worse. I think for the time being, we're just going to get our head fixed and probably just keep sending it the rest of the year. This block, I looked at all the head studs. So one way to check to see if your block is cracked or cracking, you can look at the head studs and you'll see rust on them. And I don't see any rust. So I don't think our block's cracked. We're going to check a couple other spots, but honestly, this head is a real champion. And for anybody curious on why I asked about the Steed 3000, I don't hate the stainless manifold. You guys look at how far this bolt is over. It's shrinking, and it has continued to shrink. And it's getting to the point where it's really hard to get on and off. So I think the Steed 3000 might be a little bit better answer to our solution. However, after doing some more research, we're 4 3/4 from this flange to the head. A Steed is 6 1/4. I don't know if I can accommodate 1.5 inches more out, so we might just keep sending this. After looking at the damage on the cylinder head, I don't even know if we're going to send this in to industrial. I have another head of this that has valves in it that are good, and we might just fix this up at PDD. Because I just don't think it needs to go back to industrial, and this isn't a stab at them. I truly think we can fix this ourselves very, very easily in a weekend instead of waiting for the turnaround time, because I'd really like to get back to some events, get back out and use the truck. UCC kind of sucks for that because it's kind of halfway through the season, maybe in the beginning of the season, and if you tear something up, like, you're pretty much done for the year. Seeing as we have very minimal damage and we have the parts to fix it, I'm kind of half tempted to just kind of put it back together and go have fun with it. But either way, guys, that is the damage. So in total, we have one bedside, which is $450. We have one wheel, which if I can't get it repaired, is about $800. So we're at, let's call it $1,300. Head gasket, all that stuff, let's call it another $500 for all that. So now we're at $1,800. If we had to buy all new valves and everything, let's call it $1,000, $1,000. So now we're at $3,300. New radials. I got 2 new radials. Or actually, let's do all 4. So $4,800. So less than $5,000 worth of damage. Not that big of a deal to me. I know that might come off kind of arrogant or whatever, but like when you're at this level, a $5,000 repair bill, and really, like, if all we're gonna do is dyno and dirt drag and stuff, the bedside doesn't have to be fixed. I have a different set of wheels that we drag race on, so I don't have to get a new Bogart or a new radial. You know, so it's kind of give and take. As far as the cab damage goes, we're just gonna beat this back out and put new nutserts in. And I'm going to see if I can get a new bedside in time. If not, we'll just kind of probably drift stitch it. And what I mean by that is we'll take some aluminum flat stock and kind of rivet it to this fender and give it all its shape back. And then probably maybe put a little epoxy, stuff like that. But not that bad. We could fix the taillight or not run the taillight at all. Some of the tire scuffing actually came off with like a brush, but it is what it is. Not too bad. But there it is, guys. I will probably, I got a lot of cleaning up to do, so we're going to end this video probably a little early for some. But I promise you guys, if in the next video I cut the oil filter open off camera, I will show you guys the damage to the oil filter. I'm not trying to hide it. We are going to open up the oil filter before we make the decision on the cylinder head, because if this ends up needing some machine work, we'll probably just pull the motor, take it up to power driven, put it in their rottler, get it all trued up real quick, and put it back together there. Again, kind of 50-50 on that. We'll see what the oil filter looks like and make our decision from there. But UCC 2025 damage report. I've seen a lot worse. Could it have been better? Absolutely. I would have loved for this thing to have just been fine. The damage is minimal. It is at this, again, at this level, like this looks fantastic. I'm happy. Looks like our ring gaps were good. Looks like our piston in the wall was good. I'll let you guys know again on the bearing health. Looking at the damage to the piston and everything, I would say our tappets and cam are totally fine. Like, I'm not even worried about that. The only other thing that I am going to replace is the number one rocker, and only because this bolt doesn't look the best. And then I'm also going to replace a couple of these bridges. So where they were pulling through the retainer and getting beat to heck, we're going to replace those. So that's it. We're going to send these off to DDP. I'm going to overnight them so Skylar can look at them, make sure they're okay. They ran fine, so I don't know why they wouldn't be, but it's always better to double check. Again, our turbos look great. Force Inductions has that coupon code. I'll put it down here again, 10% off. And just to FYI, guys, I don't get any kickback on that, so this is purely a savings for you. If you want to use it, awesome. I hope you do. If you don't use it, you're not hurting my bottom line, and I just wanted to be upfront and honest with that. I know sometimes people get kickback codes or kickbacks on coupons. I do not get that. I just really like their stuff, and if you guys like it, go ahead and buy it. Give this one a big thumbs up. Drop your comments down below. Subscribe if you are not already, and as always, I'll catch y'all on the next one.